Hey folks, welcome to eCommerce 360. Today we have retail-minded founder Nicole who is recognized as a global retail thought leader. Companies that include IBM, American Express, Van, and more, and including having been recognized as the number three out of 100 worldwide retail influencers. Nicole is also the co-founder of Independent Retail Conference, which is coming up in Las Vegas, and she's the author of the book Retailer 101, The Guide to Managing and Marketing Your Business. Hey, Nicole, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to chat with you today.
So, Nicole, do you want to do a bit about yourself? I guess I gave a bare skeleton description of your contribution to the retail landscape, but I'm sure I'm just touching the bare minimum.
Yeah, I'm a self-described retail geek, I guess you could say. I've always had a passion for the business of retail. In fact, even as a young girl, this is going back to when I was just a kid, my mother and I would drive to different little towns and shop local businesses as a way to spend time together. But it also built the foundation of my appreciation for the business of retail and also community, which I still appreciate today. I guess another fun fact is I actually teach in the retail business department of Columbia College. So I did that for about 8 years. And then when I relocated across the country, I had to unfortunately stop. But because of COVID, now they do digital teaching. So I'm back at it again. So I'm a professor, if you will. And that's pretty cool. So I love working with the next generation of retail leaders.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So without further ado, let's get into the topic for today, which is 2022 e-commerce trends. I guess you are the best person to get started on the e-commerce trends for 2022. So let us a bit into what the marketing spend for e-commerce businesses in 2022 should look like for us, as far as channels are concerned, as far as success rates are concerned, because all that went for a toss in 2021 when a lot of privacy updates and a lot of security coming into place. So let us into what e-commerce businesses should look into as far as marketing spend is concerned.
So what a great question. I mean, it definitely covers a lot of conversation. So there's a few places we could go here. One of the places, though, I do want to go is that marketplace selling will continue to be a really big driver of channel opportunity in e-commerce. So those that are focusing to e-commerce, looking at your Walmart.com, of course, beyond Amazon is really what I want to say here, though. Like, look beyond Amazon. I think there's a lot of great growth and opportunity there. Of course, Amazon is still crushing it as always, but there's still a lot of really valued destinations that e-commerce sellers can leverage. And so, it's one of the things actually with the Independent Retailer Conference. We hold it on site at ASD Market Week, which is the United States nation's largest consumer trade show for consumer goods, with a lot of e-commerce buyers that go there. And that is something we're constantly hearing from them. In fact, we saw them this past August 2021, and expanding their e-commerce channels is huge. Now, switching gears from that, the other thing I do want to talk about is that live commerce selling. So that e-commerce footprint where you're selling in you could be in your warehouse, you could be in a boutique in your own local main street, you could be in your kitchen or your own bedroom closet showing off, latest fashion finds, depending on whatever it is you're selling. But what this is you're selling like you and I are right now. We're virtually across the world from each other, but yet we're still communicating. They're doing that more and more with sales. We've already seen it so successfully in Asia more so, but during COVID, it really rose during the US market in particular. And now we're just seeing it globally. In fact, there's a great company called Open for Sale that's going to be kicking off during the National Retail Federation show, doing more with this. I really am a big fan of a company called Comment Sold that does that. So when I said I was a retail geek, I'm definitely a tech geek. I value a lot of the technology that fuels the business of e-commerce and retail.
Absolutely. So, glad that you touched upon COVID coming back, right? So there is, a premonition of a third wave or a fourth wave or a fifth wave. You don't know what. So, is the retail going to be rebounding, or is going to be all pure play e-commerce? What is it going to be like in 2022?
It's a challenging question because one thing we learned during COVID is that things are unpredictable, right? And so I think that there's still a lot of uncertainty, but there's also a lot of eagerness from consumers and from e-commerce business decision makers and retail leaders in general. I also think we have to look at the generations. So what I'm seeing, for example, I spend a great deal of time with my young nieces who range in age from like 18 to 2022. And these ladies are eager shoppers. They love looking to be inspired via social media and various other destinations online, but they're very excited to go to stores to discover their next, fashion outfit. Or they're decorating, one of them's decorating their first apartment. They're looking online, but they're going to thrift shops sometimes too. So I think we're going to see a heightened level in 2022 of we've always spoke about omnichannel, but I think we're going to see it come to full fruition again after COVID, where people are starting to combine that online and offline shopping experience. But just as you can shop online and end up in store, you can also shop in store and end up online. So I think we're still going to see a lot of that as well. And, again, I go back to the generations. If you guys hear my dogs, it's because I have 3 of them. And that's the one thing I learned during COVID too, is that there's just no way to
So
control them either. Yeah. But so I think the generational shift of consumer, or I should say spending control, will be very interesting as well. So I think we're going to see the older generations spend less on stuff, more on experiences again, right? Because they haven't had as many in the last few years. Whereas I think like those younger generations, they still need to start to accumulate their stuff, if you will. So that'll be really interesting to see how, the various products and inventory, what are our top sellers, where are they moving from? Is it e-commerce or is it brick and mortar?
Absolutely amazing. I think some form of a hybrid model is what you're predicting. That's great. So glad that you touched upon the social media. TikTok is blowing up. So is Insta, and FB for some is dead, and some people are like, no, it's not dead. It's still a lot is happening in FB. So what are your predictions as far as social media selling is concerned in 2022?
I think it's only going to become easier to click directly from social media to make a purchase. We have seen historically the opportunity to go from social media to make a purchase, but as you know, the more clicks you have, the less likely you are to keep a customer. So I think that we've already starting to see this with some of the technologies out there, or apps such as that Like to Know It, which is really pushed into a lot of Instagram pages. But I think we're going to see a stronger opportunity for brands to connect with consumers via social media and their own live shopping channels, which we're already seeing. So I can tell you, as a consumer myself, I do really enjoy brick and mortar experiences. But when it comes to my online shopping, I typically am more provoked to start that journey on social media. So versus going to a brand on my own, I'm inspired by the curators and the influencers, let's say for home decor, designing something, and I want them to get recognized and also valued for that. So I try my best to actually keep it within their own network of purchase, if you will. So I do think that's going to become a more increased avenue for sure.
Absolutely. And talking about selling, we should also talk about shipping with a lot of e-commerce stores cropping up at every social media channel. What are consumers' expectations out of shipping? Is it 2 day or is it same day, or have we really cracked what consumers are expecting out of e-commerce businesses as far as shipping is concerned?
It's interesting. I had a conversation with some friends recently, and they varied in age from, let's say, 30 to 50, right? And one of the other things that came throughout COVID is patience, surprisingly. There used to be this robust interest of 24 hours or less, or same day delivery. And now, because as you know, there have been global logistic challenges, right? So people have become patient with waiting for what they really want versus settling on something else in exchange for that. And so I actually think, and this is maybe a surprise to some, but I actually think that many consumers aren't going to be leveraging that same day or 24-hour delivery for purchases that might have a higher dollar value. Okay, so some of our convenient purchases like batteries, or our garage door opener just went out and we had to leverage a quick delivery for that. But other things we're willing to wait. We've become patient, almost trained. COVID trained us as consumers to say, hold on, if you really want this, you're going to need to wait. And so as customers, I think we're going to start to see that. And as brands, we're going to start to respond. And so the incentives might start to shift. Now, I do think shipping is still a priority. I do think that incorporating it into the purchase price is also important. People don't want to pay extra for shipping. They want to feel as if they're getting it as part of their just purchase process in general. So I think that's something to think about too. And I also think the experience of delivery is something that we could really talk about. And 2022 is the opportunity to heighten that. My son the other day used that Uber delivery, Uber Eats, for a school lunch. He was in high school and he was driving home, had it already clicked through. It delivered before he even got here because he had apparently left his actual wallet at home. So he knew on his lunch hour, the only situation in which he could do that would be to actually have an app that already integrated the payment system and so forth. Long story short, the delivery experience of that is something that he really likes. And I think that, throughout the different categories of retail, it can be heightened how people get the delivery, what they feel, the sentiment and the attachment to the delivery experience is kind of fun. I am working with a company who will be speaking at our independent retailer conference. And she is actually doing adult novelty boxes through subscription services, which is kind of, you've heard of subscription services before, subscription boxes, but she's now delivering it. And it's very tasteful and beautiful packaging. And it feels like the sentiment of it even being delivered starts to heighten the emotion of who's receiving it. And I think that's something we're going to have the opportunity to be excited about. And then one more thing about delivery, because I do think there's so much. Discreet delivery is important too.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to knowing what it is, seeing what it is, having anybody recognize what it is, the discreet delivery experience too, whether that's a curbside pickup for actual pickup versus delivery, or just delivery, because more and more things are being delivered that people would like in confidence. Sometimes that's even just their own medicine. I know the CBD market has some certain challenges with delivery, but there are some discreet delivery options. So there are interesting things on that level too to consider.
Very, very interesting. So just taking a quick detour from shipping, let's talk about from an e-commerce brand perspective. How important is it in 2022 for e-commerce brands to be an international brand? Should they be moving, should they be pushing boundaries? Should they become a global brand? Or is it like the norm to become a global brand in 2022?
I think becoming a global brand is very difficult in 2022 because a lot of brand recognition comes with either celebrity or heritage to the brand. Nowadays, a lot of brands are attached to a celebrity figure or an influencer, and that's what makes it a brand. What I actually think is kind of more exciting is the private label opportunity, because private label is a huge business for those that really understand it and optimize the margin value on it. They can really make strong margin on their return of purchase product versus what they're selling it for, and who their audience is. They can make it a brand, but it doesn't have to be necessarily globally recognized, and they can still do wildly well. They could also take 1 million units of candles and sell it in one area as one brand, but to a different part of the world as another brand, So there's interesting ways to kind of work with private label. So for me personally, I don't think that becoming a global brand is necessarily necessary, but rather it's more important to identify inventory strategies with strong margins that can reach a global audience.
Interesting, very well articulated. So we are towards the end of the interview, and I think the final question that we want to ask you as a wrap would be, what would be this one, trend that all these marketers, e-commerce business owners must be leveraging in order to gain a competitive edge against their competitors?
Great question. Let's see. I would say that consistency is absolutely key. It's an old-fashioned piece of advice that's still relevant in 2022. But the reason that it's even more important is there's a lot of ways to lose track on your own journey of commerce success. The path to purchase is not straight. There are various road bumps, twists and turns, detours, unexpected accidents along the way. And that's no different than your path as an e-commerce entrepreneur or business leader. It's easy to get distracted or to separate from a channel you might be trying to sell. Maybe it's not selling as well. Let's go back to that live social media selling that we discussed in the beginning. If you start that, for example, be consistent, because it's not until you are consistent that you'll probably start to see that return. And so I would say consistency is definitely key in 2022. You can't just try and give up. You need to make sure you're consistent across all the different touch points in which you're trying to engage your audience.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on our show and leaving us real deep insights. For looking forward to 2022. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.